guys, so I have put all my flour into my big huge Cambro container here, and it's now time to get that little sourdough starter fed and happy, because we know sourdough likes to be fed, because bread baking, when we're dealing with flours and sugars and things like that, it's all organic material, and until it actually goes in the oven, it's alive. And so I have a 1/4 cup of warm water here in my Pampered Chef Measure-All cup, and we're just going to gently use my scraper and allow that warm water to assist the starter from removing from the sides of our container. And so it makes it super easy to do. You don't want to try to have to do that all on your own. Plus, we need the water to help activate and feed our starter. So you want to get a nice glass or stainless steel bowl. I don't know why I've always picked this like my whole life. I've had it for like 25 years. It's an old glass Pyrex bowl, and it is like the perfect bowl for some of my basic doughs that I do. And so I'm going to grab my Pampered Chef measuring cups. I love them. They're all nested together. And remember, folks, when we're measuring flour, the 2 ways to measure flour is either by scooping it into your measuring cup. I think I'm going to use this as my little leveler here because I can't find my little butter knife. You either want to scoop it in, level it off, or actually use the best way when you're baking is to weigh your flour so it's very accurate, okay? Because the thing with flour, a lot of people make mistakes, is that they don't use the right measuring cup. Because if you're using a liquid measuring cup, the difference between measuring a liquid and measuring a solid is about 1 ounce. And so if I used my liquid measuring cup to measure out flour, I'd most likely have too much, and then I'd have something really dry. You want to make sure that in baking that you're accurate. Cooking, you have a lot of like leeway for playing around, but in baking you have to be accurate. So we've got our 2 cups of flour in here, and all we're going to do, super easy, is we're going to take this little starter now. He's alive. There's all the goo coming out. You can imagine it looks like weird snazzy stuff or something like that. And we're just going to scrape all that goodness of sourness out into the mixing bowl. You don't want to waste any of it. My goodness, if you buy it, you want to use it. So let's get as much of it as we can. I love this like micro scraper. Totally old Pampered Chef product, but I still use it to this day because it just gets right in those little tiny places. Okay, and then we're going to take my scraper, my bigger one, it says batter me up, and we're just going to mix this together. Okay, and try to blend it as much as we can. It's going to look a little special. There's some of that gooberness. And we're not going to put it in the crock yet. We're actually going to do that later tonight or tomorrow. And this will end up sitting, and we're going to add a cup of lukewarm water to this as well. It's going to end up sitting for 8 to 24 hours to come alive again. And really, it all depends on, a little too much in there. It all depends on the temperature of your house. The warmer your house is, so if you have your heater on or your fireplace going because it's January, the warmer it is, the happier and more well-fed your starter will become. And so this looks like a bunch of goo. There we go. And we're just going to cover this, you guys, with saran wrap. And we're going to let it get happy kind of over in the corner of the kitchen. And you make sure it's covered with saran wrap, or an unused like disposable shower cap works good. so that the bowl is sealed. You want to go beyond a tea towel, okay? A tea towel might allow it to dry out on the top, so you don't want to do that. But that's all it is to get your starter going. And then tomorrow, we'll take off some of the discard and it will be all ooey gooey bubbly science project, and then we will be able to start making something, or continuing to allow it to grow. Now a little fun fact about sourdough in particular is the sourness. Sometimes people wonder if you get an extract and you put sour extract into bread or something like that, but no, it's not. So do you guys remember how I said that dough is like a living organism until it's put in the oven? Because anything at 350 degrees is gonna die. And so what it is, it's fermentation. We think of fermentation as far as like beer or wine making or vinegars. Well, the same thing is happening in sourdough. And so what's happening is it's an accumulation of the organic acids that are already in the water and the sugars and the flour. And it's lactic acids, acidic acids, and they are creating, you can tell it's alive when it's creating all of those bubbles. And the bubbles and then the growth, of course. And that is fermentation in a nutshell. And so it's really, really good. That's why unless your sourdough, you're not going to use your sourdough starter frequently. If it goes in the refrigerator, it takes a few days to get it to be back alive again, because the refrigerator is so cold that it doesn't allow for fermentation to really happen. Coolness is okay, but we don't want to cut off the fermentation process because we want it sour. And then of course some of the stories about sourdough starters has a lot to do with the water of where that starter comes from. Again, mine's coming from Vermont. I wish I could get a piece of that mother starter of the Boudin Bakery up in San Francisco, but again, it's rumored that the unique flavors of sourdough have a lot to do with the type of water that they're using. So I'm sure that my sourdough would taste different from the one in Vermont, just simply because I'm adding water that is Central Coast water. So, and I have a water softener and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. So it's fun. We'll see what happens, but we will check back and see what this looks like in 8 to 24 hours. So enjoy. Good morning, everybody. It is the next day and our sourdough starter is alive and it is happy. And so it has risen. It has, you can see all the bubbles in there. It is like come alive. And so now what we're gonna do is you need a food container, whether it be a crock or a really big mason jar, because you wanna make sure that you have room to expand. And like a little crumb or something in here. There we go. You wanna make sure you have plenty of room to expand after we feed the starter again. And so if you have a kitchen scale, that's probably the best way to be able to accurately measure out your starter, and also the flour, because this definitely is a science project, you guys, and so we want to make sure that we're as accurate as possible. I'm trying to get my scale to turn on here. The battery is probably on the end, but there we go. Okay, so if you have your crock or a jar, whatever you have, you want to put it on the scale. And then most scales have a button called tare, T-A-R-E. And so you want to tear out your scale. So it zeroes it out with the heavy jar crock on top of there. So we're going to zero that out. If I can get mine, see, you know what, TV never goes perfectly. There we go. And we are going to measure out 4 ounces. But before we do that, we kind of want to stir this down. Look how sticky and gooey that is. It's so beautiful. Okay, so we are going to do a little bit like a blob. Seriously, it is a blob. So we want to make sure that we're accurate. So I'm going to remove some of this because my blob came out fast and furious. And so what you can do with the discard, and the discard is what's left here in the bowl. What you can do with the discard is either save it and use it to make pizza crust or sourdough waffles, anything like that you can use the discard for. Just put it in a jar. It stays in the refrigerator for about a week. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get a mason jar and measure out another 4 ounces. And I am going to give that to a friend of mine. And because she was wanting to start her own starter as well. And so I said, hey, don't get a starter. I'll just give you off of mine. And that's kind of the fun thing about sourdough is you can share the starters. If you remember back in like the early 2000s, everybody on the moms did like Amish friendship bread where it had a starter. So it makes it kind of fun. So I said, well, just wait just a minute. Okay, so there's the giant container of flour. And we are going to measure out 4 ounces of flour. And we're going to add that in. So 4 ounces of starter and 4 ounces of flour. So 4 plus 4 is 8, homeschooling families. This is how we do basic math, is to cook. Fractions are your friends too when you guys are starting to do homeschool. This is cooking and sewing. Reinforce all those fractions. Almost there. Perfect. Okay, and to that, we're going to add half a cup of lukewarm water. And I'm using water from my RO system. You know, kind of think about what you have. All right. And so we're just going to give this a nice stir. Get everything mixed together nice and gently in here. And that's it. That is just how we're going to do this like one more time tomorrow. It's going to grow. We're going to split it again. And then we're going to then be able to make bread with it. Remember, the more that you feed your starter, consecutive days in a row, you can get a little bit more sour flavor to it. It's a little bit more developed because it's had time for all of that organic matter in there to start fermenting. Because remember, this is a process of fermentation. And so you just want to keep this in a nice draft-free area. Of course, this comes with a lid. And tomorrow you're going to repeat the process one more time. And you're going to take off 4 ounces of the starter and save it. And then you will discard the rest for another day or split it, whatever you want to do. And then 4 ounces of flour and half a cup of water. If you don't plan on using this right away, you do need to put it in the refrigerator and take it out at least a day before you want to make bread with it. If you put it in the refrigerator, you do have to take it out at least once a week and feed it, or else it will die, and that's where I kind of got into trouble there. And so I highly recommend maintaining and keeping your starter alive. So have fun. Share your discard with your friends. It's always fun to feed your friends and share the love of baking with them as well. So have fun with your sourdough starter. I can't wait to see pictures. And of course, you can go order starter from the Mother Starter at kingarthurflour.com. You can find all these great tools and scales and things at pamperedchef.biz/pamperedjamie, and of course at Home Ec Express. So I hope that you guys have a great day and have fun baking. Okay, you guys, so we've been feeding our starter, and we have now a very healthy starter. Before though, I actually pulled off a cup of the starter from my crock and then fed the half a cup that was left in here. And then we're just gonna let this go until tomorrow. But what do you do if you're not going to actually use that ripe starter that you pull off when you feed your starter? Super easy, you guys. put it in mason jars. And if you're not gonna make bread today, stick that discard in the refrigerator, and then there's wonderful recipes for sourdough waffles, sourdough pizza crust, even cinnamon rolls. So it never has to go to waste. So what we're gonna do though with our 1 cup that we pulled off of our starter today is we're gonna make just a traditional rustic sourdough. In the mixer, we have 5 cups of flour ready to go, and we're going to add to this 1 cup of ripe starter. And if we had smell-o-vision today, you'd be smelling that sour smell that we all love with our sourdough. And we're gonna add to this about 2.5 teaspoons of salt. We're going to put in here about a teaspoon or so of dry active yeast. And if you guys are buying your yeast in bulk, make sure that you keep it in the freezer. And finally, we're gonna add 1.5 cups of warm water. We're gonna add our kneading hook to our KitchenAid mixer here. Put it down and let it do the work. That's the great thing. If you don't wanna build arm muscles, you don't have to. You let the mixer do all the work. So we're gonna let this go until it starts to pull away from the sides and creates almost like a ball inside of our mixer. Just make sure you watch the speed. We're gonna pull this off with this beautiful dough here. All right, we wanna make sure that we've got everything incorporated. There's just a little bit of dry stuff on the bottom, so we'll just incorporate that in. And here's the hard part. We're gonna cover it with saran wrap, let it rest for 90 minutes. I'll catch you on the other side. Okay, you guys, it's been 90 minutes, and so our dough has just about doubled in size here. And I'm gonna take my dough scraper and just go around the sides. And before we forget though, let's talk about pans. There's different ways that you could bake this. I'm gonna do 1 big round loaf on a baking stone, and this is a seasoned baking stone. That's why we have all the discoloration here from Pampered Chef, by the way. But if you want to divide the dough in half, you can get yourself a baguette pan online. You do want to brush a little oil on this if you do want to use this for making baguettes, and you would just twist them into long loaves. And for this one, super easy. We're literally going to just kind of dump the dough right onto the stone and just shape it, okay? And this is kind of like where you get to be a kid and play Play-Doh a little bit. And so we're gonna just shape it the way that we want. And how easy is this? All you're gonna do, cover it with saran wrap it once more, and we're gonna let it rise for 60 minutes and get ready to preheat our oven at the end of that time at 425 degrees. So I'll see you guys in about an hour, and we'll get ready to bake our bread. Hour, and our bread dough has risen. It is nice and puffy. We're going to take this saran wrap off, and what we're going to do is we're going to spray with a spray bottle. Make sure water only is labeled on there, that nobody tries to put chemicals in your water bottle. And we're going to spray this really, really, really good with clean water, and then we're going to give it just a light dusting of flour. And if you want a really dark crust, you can brush this with egg yolk if you want to. And all we're going to do is take a serrated knife, or if you have an incredibly sharp straight blade knife, you can do this as well, but you want to just put 3 deep slashes in your bread dough. That's it, you guys. So this is going to go into our preheated oven, 425, for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then you'll have hot, delicious bread to eat. So have fun, and can't wait to show you the results.